The case of Senator Nancy Schaefer. Who was Senator Nancy Schaefer? A Republican member of the Georgia Senate, Nancy worked to stop the North American Union and was against the TTP. Shortly before her death, she published a paper called The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services. She died under suspicious circumstances in 2010. Nancy died aged 73 on the 26th of March 2010, shot by an unlicensed gun in the back while sleeping. Her husband, Bruce Schaefer, was shot by the same gun in the chest. Mainstream media and later the police announced it was a murder-suicide perpetrated by her husband. What we know: months before Nancy's death, she started using throwaway cell phones because she suspected hers were being tapped. Nancy and her husband Bruce were devout Christians with loving family and grandchildren. Even long after their deaths, friends and family were reportedly too afraid to talk to journalists about what happened. One of her acquaintances revealed that Nancy feared for her life and avoided traveling to Washington, D.C. as a precaution. This is what Nancy Schaefer wanted you to know. Nancy was in the process of publishing a book revealing how Child Protective Services were making money off foster children. Nancy's concern was that the CPS workers were taking kids from healthy families to adopt out for financial gain. In one speech, she said social workers are very often guilty of fraud. They withhold and destroy evidence. The federal government and state of Georgia offer financial incentives and targets for child adoption. Nancy talks about how they offer cash bonuses. Some counties offer $4,000 to $6,000 for each child adopted out to strangers. Each bonus is multiplied by the percentage that the state has managed to exceed its baseline adoption number. And that means that in order to receive the cash incentive bonuses, local child protective services would need more children. They must have merchandise that sells, and they must have plenty so the buyer can choose. 415,129 children were in U.S. foster care in 2014, a 4% increase from 2012. So what happens to children in foster care? Many young children who enter the foster care system are further traumatized as they are placed in a different home than that of their brother or sister. At least 38% of foster youth experience 5 or more placements, meaning that they get sent from family to family. 33% of females in foster care become pregnant by age 17 or 18. Children in foster care are 6 times more likely to be killed than those in the general public. And children in foster care are also more likely to suffer abuse, including sexual abuse, than those in the general population. What foster care means for children's life outcomes. 84% of 17 to 18-year-olds in foster care say they want to go to college. Only 50% graduate high school, and only 10% attend college. Of those who attend college, only 3% graduate. Experts estimate that 45% of those leaving foster care become homeless within a year. Nancy said these are crimes against humanity for financial gain. Before Nancy's death, she initiated the production of a documentary on these crimes committed by Child Protective Services. So how might this relate to Pizzagate? Well, a radio host who spoke with Nancy 3 days before she died said this: the children were being shipped out to pedophiles and adopted out to them. So who murdered Nancy Schaefer? The man she hired to produce the documentary is called William Thane. He says, I have 100% no doubt that it was a murder-suicide. So he's agreeing with the mainstream media and police perspective here. The thing is, the documentary that he was hired by Nancy to produce was never released. I found this comment on William's public Facebook page. Someone said, you did an interview in 2010 that said the documentary would be done in 3 weeks, and you promised Nancy and her husband you wouldn't let anything or anyone stop you. Then, when asked when it would be released, you said the people of the country had a right to know about CPS, and it would be released within a couple of months. These are your words, not mine. And William responded to him, obviously, I changed my mind. What made William change his mind? Well, I contacted him via Facebook Messenger. He saw my message, and he didn't respond. Someone who says he knew Nancy for 15 years says this: "I've spoken to several people who know her better than I do. They believe that the murder-suicide theory is highly unlikely for any one of the following reasons." And I'm not going to read all of the reasons to you, but I will link this article below. So here are some of the reasons. Friends who knew the couple best state that Bruce would simply not have the capacity to kill his wife. Nancy was dedicated as a national leader to help needy people overcome abuse within Child Protective Services organizations. Nancy was actively exposing corruption within the Department of Family and Child Services, including actions by the DFCS director in the county where she lived. Nancy knew that she was needed in the fight against child sex trafficking in Atlanta, which has one of the highest activity rates in the country. Bruce was highly supportive of Nancy's work for decades and would have little or no reason to suddenly try to kill her at such a critical juncture in her career. Specifically in Georgia, former Senator Nancy Schaefer had found during the last few years that the DFCS in Georgia housed children in a foster home with a known pedophile who molested the children. The DFCS in Habersham County failed to remove 6 children from a home where they were being abused and tortured. The DFCS in Georgia turned 2 girls over to a California father who had a pornographic video business. And the examples like this, unfortunately, go on and on. Some last words from Nancy. Abolish the federal and state financial incentives that have turned the CPS into a business that separates families for money. She said, "I have witnessed such injustice done to families that I am not sure if reform of the system is even possible. Many children disappear and are never heard from again." A special thank you to the primary sponsor for this video, the Concerned Citizen in Australia. And if you would like to take part in sponsoring these videos, head on over to Patreon. And if you're new here, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.